Rick called me not long ago and said something that made me pause for a moment. He said, "Marcus, we're living in a time where people are searching for answers, but most of the advice they hear comes from people who haven't actually lived through the storms yet. Sometimes the wisdom people need comes from someone who has already been through the fire and comes out the other side." Then he asked me if I would share my story with this community. So here I am. And before I begin, I want to say something directly to you. If this video appeared in your watch list today, don't just assume it's random. Sometimes a story appears in front of you because there is a message hidden inside it that you need to hear right now. Maybe you're walking through a difficult season. Maybe something in your life isn't working the way it used to. Maybe you feel like the ground under your feet has started shifting. If that's the case, stay with me until the end of this story, because the lesson I learned during the hardest season of my life might be the exact lesson you are meant to hear today. And if you believe in what Rick is doing here, bringing people together from the community with real-life experience so the rest of us can learn from it, please support the channel, like the video, and subscribe so more members of this community can come forward and share the wisdom life has taught them. My name is Marcus. I'm 82 years old. And 15 years ago, something happened that changed the course of my life in a way I never expected. My children stopped visiting me. Not for a few months. Not for a year. 15 years. Imagine that for a moment. 15 Christmas mornings where the house stayed quiet. 15 birthdays where the phone barely rang. 15 years of walking past 3 empty bedrooms that once held the laughter of the people I loved most. People assume when children stop visiting their parents, something terrible must have happened. Some huge fight, some unforgivable betrayal. But the truth is often more painful than that. Sometimes there isn't one moment that breaks a family. Sometimes it's 1,000 small ones. And by the time you see the damage, it's already done. For most of my life, people in town knew me as Marcus, the insurance man. I owned a small insurance office on Main Street for 35 years. Life insurance, retirement planning, financial protection, long-term care policies. My job was simple. I helped families prepare for the future so disaster wouldn't destroy everything they built. I was good at it too. People trusted me. They would sit across from my desk and ask questions that carried real weight. "Marcus, if something happens to me, will my family be okay?" I helped thousands of families protect their futures. But the strange thing about life is this. Sometimes the man who teaches everyone else how to protect their future doesn't realize his own family is slowly drifting away. My wife Helen and I raised 3 children, David, Karen, and Michael. I loved those kids with everything I had. But the way men of my generation showed love was different. We didn't talk about feelings. We worked. We provided. We sacrificed quietly. I built that insurance office from nothing. Long days, late nights, client meetings that stretched past dinner. And every time I missed something important at home, I told myself the same sentence that millions of fathers have said before me. I'm doing this for them. I remember one moment that comes back to me often now. My son David had a basketball game when he was 14. He asked me all week if I was coming. I promised him I would. But that afternoon, a wealthy client walked into my office wanting a massive insurance policy for his construction company. That deal could cover half my yearly revenue. So I called home and said the words that would become a habit in my life. Something came up. My wife went to the game without me. That night, she told me David scored 20 points and the whole gym was cheering his name. I smiled and told myself there would be another game. There's always another game, right? Except there isn't. Karen had a school play I missed. Michael had a science fair I arrived late to. Birthdays where I showed up halfway through. Dinners eaten without me because a client meeting ran long. I believed I was being responsible, providing, protecting. But children don't measure love the same way adults do. Children measure love by presence. Years passed. The kids grew up, built careers, moved away. And then 15 years ago, something happened that shook our family to the core. My wife Helen died unexpectedly. Heart failure. One moment she was standing in our kitchen making coffee. The next she was gone. The house changed overnight. Silence filled rooms that used to feel warm. But the bigger change came slowly after that. At the funeral, my children stood beside me. They cried, they hugged me, and then something shifted. The visits became shorter. Conversations felt strained. One afternoon, my daughter Karen said something I didn't understand at the time. She looked at me and said, "Dad, we don't really know you." I laughed it off back then. I thought she was grieving. I thought time would fix it. But time didn't fix it. Time revealed it. After Helen died, the truth about our family slowly surfaced like something rising from deep water. My children didn't just lose their mother that day. They lost the person who had always held our family together. Helen had been the bridge between me and them. She softened my rough edges. She translated my silence into love. And without her there, something became painfully clear. My children had spent their entire lives orbiting around a man they barely understood. A man who worked constantly. A man who gave advice more often than he listened. A man who thought paying the bills was the same thing as being present. Visits became uncomfortable. Conversations felt forced. Every time they came over, I slipped back into the role I knew best: the provider, the advisor, the problem solver. Are you saving enough for retirement? You should invest differently. You need better insurance coverage. I thought I was helping. But one evening, a few months after Helen's funeral, the truth finally broke through the polite silence we had been hiding behind. My daughter Karen was standing in the kitchen where her mother used to cook. She looked around the room for a long moment, and then she said something I have never been able to forget. She said, "Dad, do you even know who we are?" I remember laughing nervously, like she must be joking, but she wasn't. Her voice started shaking. She told me that growing up, every conversation with me felt like a performance review. Every visit felt like an evaluation. How were their finances? Were they saving enough? Were they making responsible decisions? She said something that hit me harder than any insult ever could. She said, "Mom was the one who loved us. You were the one who managed us." And for the first time in my life, I didn't have an answer. I stood there in that kitchen, surrounded by memories of the woman who had held us together, and I realized something terrifying. For 40 years, I believed I had been building a strong family. But what I had really built was a system, a structure, a life that worked on paper. And when Helen died, the one person who made that structure feel like love disappeared with her. What remained was a house full of quiet rooms and 3 grown children who no longer knew how to stand inside it with me. Eventually, the visit stopped. At first, it was subtle. A holiday missed here, a phone call instead of a visit there. Then one year Christmas came and went without anyone knocking on the door. Then another, and another. One night about 5 years into that silence, I sat in my living room staring at the front door. I realized something terrifying. I didn't actually know my children as adults. I knew the kids they used to be, but the people they had become, their children, my grandchildren, those were strangers to me. That realization nearly broke me. I spent the next few years doing what lonely men often do. Waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for someone to remember me, waiting for life to come back the way it used to be. But waiting slowly shrinks a man's world. One morning, I looked at myself in the mirror and asked a question that changed everything. "Marcus, if your children walked through that door right now, would they actually enjoy being here?" The honest answer was no. My entire life had been built around responsibility, not connection. So I did something at 75 years old that I should have done decades earlier. I started learning how to be a human being instead of just a provider. I joined a small financial literacy group at the community center and began teaching young families about retirement planning, insurance protection, and financial independence. But something surprising happened there. Those young couples didn't just ask about money. They asked about life, about mistakes, about regret. And one evening, a young man asked me a question that stopped me cold. He said, "Marcus, if you could go back 40 years, what would you do differently?" The room went silent, and the answer came out before I could stop it. I would show up more. Because the truth is this: children don't remember the policies you sold. They remember the seats you left empty. Something changed in me after that night. I stopped trying to fix everything. I started listening. I started living. And slowly, after years of distance, something unexpected happened. My phone rang. It was David, then Karen, then Michael. The conversations were awkward at first. 15 years of silence doesn't disappear overnight. But something had shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to manage them. I was just their father. I'm 82 years old now. My children visit sometimes. Not every week. Not the way families look in holiday commercials. But when they walk through my door now, something feels different than it did all those years ago. We don't talk like a father lecturing his children anymore. We talk like people who are finally getting to know each other for the first time. Sometimes the conversations are simple. Sometimes they're awkward. Sometimes we sit at the kitchen table and laugh about things that happened 20 or 30 years ago. And sometimes there are quiet moments where none of us say anything at all, because we all know how close we came to losing each other for good. I won't pretend everything is perfect now. Life doesn't work that way. But the distance that once felt like an ocean between us is slowly becoming something smaller, something we can cross together. And I want to say something here that matters to me deeply. I want to thank Rick. Because when Rick invited me to come down to the community center and share what I knew with younger people, he probably didn't realize what he was really giving me. At first, I thought I was just going there to talk about insurance, retirement planning, financial mistakes people should avoid. But those evenings became something much bigger than that. Sitting in that room with young couples trying to build their lives, answering their questions, hearing their worries about the future, it gave an old man like me something I thought I had lost. It gave me purpose again. It reminded me that even at 82 years old, you can still be useful. You can still help someone avoid the mistakes you made. And most of all, it reminded me that loneliness doesn't have to be the end of your story. Sometimes all it takes is one place, one community, one conversation to remind you that your life still matters. So if you're watching this today and the house feels a little too quiet, if the phone doesn't ring the way it used to, if you sometimes sit there wondering where the years went and why things changed, I want you to remember something that took me a long time to understand. Love is not measured by what you provided. It's measured by how safe people feel sitting across the table from you, by whether they can breathe around you, by whether they feel heard when they speak. And the beautiful thing about that truth is this: it's never too late to become that person. If this story meant something to you, please support Rick and what he's building here. Like the video, subscribe, because this community isn't just about telling stories. It's about passing wisdom from one generation to the next, so maybe, just maybe, someone listening today can avoid learning the same lesson the hard way like I did. And if even one person hears this and decides to pick up the phone, open their door, or sit down at a table and truly listen to someone they love, then every quiet year that led me here will have been worth it. Thank you for listening.